Hello and thanks for joining us. Welcome to State of the Nation. I'm Hadiza Audu. We are transmitting live from our studios here in Abuja. Joining me on this program is my colleague, Terverr Tyav.
Yes, hello and thanks for joining us. Day 7 of the End Bad Governance protest across the country. Suspension in some places, others announcing withdrawals, and authorities where curfew has been imposed, been reviewed across the country. That is basically a summary of what we are getting across the 36 states of the Federation.
Indeed.
Normalcy appears to have been returning to the streets in most parts of the north, where there were issues of looting and carrying of the controversial Russian flag. But it appears the nation is marching on, moving away from the protest, but the demands of the protesters are there, and they keep saying the demands have not been met.
Exactly, Terverr. And what the protesters are really asking is the review of economic policies of President Bola Tinubu. Some northern groups have also urged the federal government to, take these policies, which they call unfriendly. And they also urge the government to intensify the ongoing war against banditry and other forms of insecurity in the country. So we'll begin by playing back the interview we had earlier on our station with the Information and National Orientation Minister, Ait'S, who visited DAR Communications before we go into our proper discussions.
The events, especially of the last 1 week, is so important to all of us in this country. Those who desire to protest, the media, people in government, and other stakeholders. And I believe that all of us have learned serious lessons. And our own idea is that we should begin to utilize those lessons that we have learned as quickly as possible, even before the dust dies down. We know that the media is an integral part of democracy. In fact, without the media, government cannot be held to account for its actions or lack of it. And so we believe that the media must do its job. The media must be allowed to flourish in an atmosphere of freedom, of peace, and also of support. And I want to bring to you the words of Mr. President. Mr. President himself has said he is a product of vibrant media. The media has helped him in his democratic journey, and therefore he is not going to in any way, form or shape, allow the media to take a backseat in this country. He recognizes that, like I said earlier, the media is a very important partner for any Democrat. And because he is one, an experienced one at that, someone who has come this far in his democratic journey, he believes that the media must flourish, the media must have its freedom to operate, but beyond that, the media must also be supported so that it can do its job well. But there is also a concern that the media, even though it's supposed to have the freedom to operate, the other leg of it sometimes appear to be left, and that is the side of responsibility. While media or freedom of expression is a must, but it's also a must that freedom also comes with responsibility. And that is the message that we have always tried to preach. The administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu wants to ensure that the media operates freely without let or hindrance, but is also calling on the media to be very responsible in the discharge of that very important role for our democracy to grow. Some of the lessons that we have seen, especially in the last 1 week since this protest began, and even a few days before, is that there is an anxiety to cover proceedings, which is normal, which is correct. But we have also seen that in that coverage, we seem to also forget that we must have a country. We must have one united country before we can even perform our constitutional responsibility. And so one of the reasons why we are here today is to come and let you know that, as we have said at the very beginning, so it is now, that there is no attempt whatsoever for the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to go in the way of media freedom in this country. But in doing so, to also urge the media to see reason with the administration to understand that Nigeria is going through a challenge now because of decades of some policy missteps which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has come to correct. There will be some challenges. And like the President himself has always said, he knows that those reforms that he is undertaking will come with some hiccups here and there, challenges here and there. But those challenges are only temporary. They are designed, the policies are designed for us to have a better country in the short, medium, and long term. The President did not take office to make Nigerians suffer. This is a message that I want people to know. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu didn't take office so that Nigerians will suffer. He took office so that Nigeria will prosper. But in the journey towards that prosperity, a lot of sacrifices will have to be made. Some hardship will have to be endured. Adjustments will have to be made here and there on both sides, so that at the end of the day, we'll have that country that we all need to have. Some of the policies that the President has undertaken are policies that almost all those who aspire to lead this country have also pledged or promised to undertake. So now that the baton has fell on him to do so, we expect that everyone will come together and support him to do that. They are very tough decisions, especially the decision to remove fuel subsidy, which he took very early as he took office, and also the unification of our exchange rate. All of us are in agreement that we cannot have a subsidy regime where a few members of the Nigerian society are profiting at the expense of the people generally. major decisions of removal of fuel subsidy and unification of the foreign exchange are two big, tough decisions that everyone that requires to lead, that desires to lead this country will have to take for this country to move forward. And like I was saying, before the oil subsidy removal in May 29 of 2023, Nigeria was importing about 2 billion liters of fuel every day. And government had always known that most of this fuel is not meant for domestic consumption, meaning that we are not just subsidizing our people, we are also subsidizing others outside our borders. That is evident because immediately after the fuel subsidy regime was abolished, our domestic consumption came down to about 1 billion liters per month. And that continued for a number of months. So what that tells us is that the fuel that we're subsidizing, half of it, we're not just subsidizing for Nigerians, we're also subsidizing for people outside this country. As it is today, many of our neighbors are relying on Nigeria's cheap fuel. And so resources that ought to be freed so that we can build schools, fix hospitals, construct roads, and do so many other things, put money into agriculture, those funds were now being taken away. Now, because of the way our naira has slided, it has also contributed to that.
Indeed, that is the message from the federal government. I can be sure that the media tour that started with Dark Communications PLC will also see the minister visit other media organizations. But we have live from Ojota in Lagos, Koli Omodu, who will be giving us update on what is happening. Today is a day of mourning declared by the protesters in Lagos.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're in Lagos, as you can see. But I would like to tell you, Terverr, that we couldn't get to the Freedom Park, really, where the protesters have gathered all through these days of protest. Reason being that only yesterday, even some crew members of another station were attacked at that particular Freedom Park by thugs who we cannot independently identify who they were or where they came from. But you can also remember that since this announcement by the president on Sunday, that's the national broadcast, which talked about asking the protesters to see how they can suspend that particular protest. We have seen thugs attack almost on a daily basis right at the Freedom Park where the protesters are gathering. On Monday, a day after that protest, we were at that particular ground, the Freedom Park, and there was a protest as well. But just after we left there, thugs were told invaded the place, and by that time even police had also left. And then we saw that they attacked some of the protesters who were still hanging around. At the time they had closed about 4 p.m. So yesterday, we spoke with the organizers of the protesters as to whether there was going to be a convergence or not, and they told us that because of that attack that happened after we left on Monday, that they had decided that there will be no convergence anymore at the Freedom Park between that yesterday until Friday, which will make it the 10th day of the protest. What they have decided to do after their meeting is that they have agreed that instead of going to the Freedom Park and allowing people, protesters who come innocently to protest, to be attacked by thugs, they have decided to re-strategize, use another mechanism, but also sustain the protest for the 10 days they had set out for. So between now, today, and Friday, it is declared as a day of mourning Today, the first day, tomorrow will be second day, and then on Friday will be the grand finale of that particular mourning period. They said it is a tribute to those who have lost their lives during this protest throughout the nation. We didn't record any deaths, so to speak, in Lagos, but across the country there have been deaths and there have been arrests as well, and they said they are in solidarity with those who died in the course of this end hunger protest. And so they determined that it is time to actually celebrate them and also mourn them within these 3 days. They said that grand finale, that's on Friday, there will be a candlelight procession to actually pay tribute to them. They are also, in their statement, asking that the Inspector General of Police tender an unreserved apology to Nigerians who were killed by who they refer to as trigger-happy policemen, whom they said were the ones that actually triggered whatever violence that happened in the areas where they had violence that led to the death of some protesters. So that is one of the calls they are making. They are also begging the authorities to release those who have been arrested. They mentioned about 3 of their leaders in different parts of the country who are still in police custody, that they believe they should be released to them as a reason, as a way of also showing that the police has no hand in what is happening in some places where protesters have been attacked. So this is how far we can tell you what is happening. Today there's no convergence at all at the Freedom Park in Ojota, and we also deliberately decided to stay a bit away from the Freedom Park just to ensure that we are also not attacked like our colleagues in other parts, in other stations were attacked yesterday. Just being careful, really, because the organizers have told us that there will be no convergence. They are not going to that place today, and also tomorrow and on Friday. Terverr.
Nkoli, I can see that Lagos is peaceful, at least from the picture where you're standing there. But what is the security situation as we speak?
Yes, there's no problem really. Just like I said earlier, you can recall that deaths have been recorded in several parts of the country, but no death really was recorded in Lagos. And like we have been reporting from the day the protest started, the CP in Lagos was actually applying what I could call emotional intelligence in dealing with what may have resulted to a very big fracas at the Freedom Park in Lagos. First, what he does is when there is an issue and maybe other younger policemen are talking to the protesters and saying, hey, you just have to go inside the Freedom Park and stay there. That is where you are restricted. And they are insisting on staying on the road so they can make much impact. The CP, when he arrives, he will tell everybody, please calm down. They are still within the vicinity of the Freedom Park. They have not broken any law, so allow them to make use of the service lane, but they should not cross over to the main lane of the road. So that's how he has been able to manage the situation. And even when thugs come and he's around, he will tell them to go away and then allow the protesters to also have their protest. But I think what happened was that on Monday, after 4 p.m., when the police came and told the protesters, okay, it is time to go, please just leave. And we left. Some protesters left, others were still hanging around, you know how it is. And then that was when the thugs came again and started attacking those who were there. So after that attack, the organizers decided that instead of having people get injured because they want to protest, that they want to re-strategize. You can stay wherever you are in your home and also still be protesting. They have advised people, particularly youths, to use the Twitter, their X handles and all their social media handles to also keep faith with the protesters so that they can sustain this protest till the 10th day. And what they are saying is that if you can go to Twitter, you can put up your message there, you can put up graphics there in solidarity with those who have been killed in the course of this protest. You can also wear black as you move out today, tomorrow and next, also to show solidarity. You can use any other form individually wherever you are to also show that you are still with this end hunger protest. But they believe that convergence is no longer necessary at this time because they don't want people to get killed or be injured by thugs.
Thank you so very much indeed. Stay safe so that you can tell us the story of Lagos.
Exactly. And okay, let's join our correspondent, Abaje Osekwe, who is standing by for us live in Port Harcourt. Abaje, good evening. Okay, Tevi, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, has spoken extensively.
Okay, Abaje, please, can you unmute yourself, unmute your device so that we can hear you?
Clearly. Okay.
Yeah, can you? Okay.
Are we having difficulties
glitch,
there?
yeah.
Okay, so I was saying earlier that the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, visited Dar, and we saw in that report everything he said about the media, particularly how the media should and must help Nigeria's democracy, particularly at this time the country is facing, this protest all over the country.
Yes, indeed. He's a senior member of the profession, so he should know what he's talking about. But at moments like this, a lot of persons, have their own assessment of what, or their own expectations of what the media should or should not do. But you can be sure that at all times, the media is supposed to stand with the people. At all times, the media is supposed to stand for the interest of the society, which includes the government and the governed. And that's what we're doing right here on AIT. On
AIT, very much so. So a lot has been talked about over a couple of days with the protests. There's been demands, and everybody is talking about hardship, the economic situation particularly. Hike in petroleum, that is fuel. Hike in farm produce, that is food items, and all of that. And we also had some ministers. We also had a minister yesterday with Nancy on our program.
Minister of Information.
Yes. Edun.
Wale.
Wale Edun, who also spoke extensively why President Tinubu had to remove the fuel subsidy. He talked about neighboring countries benefiting from removal of fuel subsidy in Nigeria, and then how the previous administration failed to address that particular issue. And that's the reason why President Bola Tinubu came to correct, what they term as bad policies.
Indeed, those are the stories we've heard right from even the Obasanjo administration up till now. Everybody, the same subsidy issue. They will tell you they're even subsidizing the rich and not the poor. But what is happening on the streets, what is happening in the markets, and everybody is seeing and feeling it. I guess everybody now understands better what the issues are. We have two gentlemen in the studio with us who will engage these issues, what is happening across the country, the end bad governance protest, the demands, the fallout, the lessons, and all that it is for the country to pick and move forward. We have with us Isa Sanusi, the country director, Amnesty International Nigeria.
And we also have Jonathan Onoja, security analyst. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show. Today we're having a wrap on the show, so we want to have a review of what's been going on over the days. Okay,
maybe just before we engage you, let's take this report in Abuja. Enemaku Ojochegbe is live in Abuja, in Nyanya area, Nyanya satellite town of Abuja, where there's been some form of uprising in the early part of the protest, not today. So he'll give us an update. Enemaku, are you there with us? Yes, Enemaku.
I can see his picture, but frozen.
Yeah, it's frozen. It's. I will see how we can get to that. But then
let's get to the story.
I think that today
so,
being the 7th day of
let's
August.
Start with you, sir. What in all of this? What can you make out of it?
Well, first of all, we have to admit that our country is in trouble because over 80% or 90% are living below poverty line. Food is difficult to come by. Many families spend days without feeding properly. Many families could not afford the cost of education, could not afford the cost of health care, and inflation is rising at a rapid speed. that is unbearable, hard, and difficult. At the same time, people are seeing a situation whereby they are suffering, and there was no any sign that things will get better for them. And that is why people are losing hope. And if you look at the trend of how people are responding to this situation, you realize that we really have a big problem at hand. And the earlier we start to address these problems, the better. When this protest started, we see in places in the north where young children, or I can say teenagers, went and looted shops where they took vegetable oil, bags of rice. So if I'm a leader of Nigeria, I will be ashamed that my people are struggling to steal what to eat. If I am a leader in Nigeria, I will be ashamed to go on world stage and say I am a leader of Nigeria while my people are struggling just to get what to eat. Not asking for, super technology, not asking for housing, not asking for world-class education, just what to eat. So the whole of it is that this protest should serve as a lesson and should serve as a turning point for our country. Our leaders have to do the right thing to address this question of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and gross injustice that is happening in this country. And many people don't even give enough attention to the issue of social justice. People knew that if you don't have money, you can never get justice, no matter how you are violated or abused. And people know that if you are not connected to somebody, you cannot even get a good job. So all these feelings, all these perceptions, people are carrying them around, and the bitterness is increasing. And the earlier, I have to repeat, the earlier our leaders listen to the people instead of talking down on them, the better. At the beginning of this protest, we saw people, government officials, saying toxic things, rhetorical, harmful things about the protest is sponsored, is political. All this is completely baseless and without any evidence. People are hungry. People are hungry, and that is why people are stealing food. They are not stealing that food to go and sell. They are stealing to go and eat and feed their families. Therefore, when people started to say, well, it's politics, we want to do this, is a way to tell you that our leaders are totally disconnected with the reality of this country.
Yes, Jonathan Onoja, it appears in the build-up to the protest and during the protest and where we are now, the interest of the government is more on security than these issues that the country director has raised. Do you think we've learned any lesson, or there's anything that can be done differently?
Yes, I think there are so many things that can be done differently. And honestly, I think we've learned a lot of lessons from the protest, just about 4 days that we had a heated protest. I think the government have learned a lot of lessons. Number one, the reality on ground is about hunger. Nigerians are truly hungry. You and I know the reality on ground. And unfortunately, all of this is tagged, like the minister said, to bad policy. And let me also add, not just bad policy, but bad leadership, and also policy sequences. If there is good leadership and policy sequences, and also talking about good followership, I think we would have had it right. But unfortunately, we lost it when leaders are not trusted, and Nigerians begin to perceive an upward cheat from the leader to the people. And so, good enough, the government has admitted, in a way, that there's hunger in the land. But to the build up to this protest, what some of us were saying was, the lessons learned from the Ait'S was not palatable. And so we condemn totally any issues of street protest. However, there are relevant institutions of government that we can channel our grievances to, rather than embarking on street protest that have always left our people in a bad light. Today, like this just reporter said, they are mourning in Lagos. The National Assembly is still holding. I don't think anybody have had a 2, 3, or 1 minute silence over Nigerians that lost their lives. Yes, they are Nigerians. They're entitled to what they have happened, but unfortunately, they find themselves in that area of bullets, as is going to be tagged, or whatever happens. So the fundamentals has to be addressed. Like coming back to the lessons that we have learned. Unfortunately, the president addressed the nation, and that, in a way, begin to, talk to sensitive Nigerians, like, what has happened? What has changed? Has he addressed the problems on ground? That's the question since the address was made. You understand? But politically, some will say, oh, people wanted him to say something, and he has said something. But we cannot continue to play with the intelligence and the sensitivity of the whole Nigerian people, over 229 million people. And so, I want to believe that the lessons learned so far, like you know and I know too, that the build up to this protest, government began to, churn out some they call projects. But to me, that does not satisfy the demands of the people in a way. Like the selling of the crude oil to Dangote refineries and all of that happened, the importation duties and all of that levy that was brought down for a period, that did not actually address the problem. If Mr. President had come and said, gentlemen, from today henceforth, fuel will be sold at 200 naira, you and I will not be discussing today. Rather, we should be saying, thank you, Mr. President. Because the ordinary Nigerian that lives in Nyanya, that goes to Wesi, that cleaner you see that she's paid 35,000 or 40,000, that is not even up to the 70,000 naira minimum wage approved, goes to work on daily basis. She depends, her salary is largely spent on transportation. That innocent woman that roasts corn on the street, she needs to go and get her corn from the market to come to where her point to sell. All of this is tagged to, fuel. That innocent child that comes back from school to barb hair, to be able to go back after school runs, needs fuel to make sure that he's able to barb some average Nigerians in the shop. That innocent girl that's called dude salon need fuel to be able to be stable in the shop. If we don't have if people don't patronize her today, you will see her on the street tomorrow. And then also insecurity contributed largely to the problems we have on ground. And like we know, the herders-farmers clashes has always been there. The issues in Bono is on a daily rise, down in Benue and other parts of the country, especially in the north. And that is why you see some of the problems we have to the build up to this protest, and even in the protest, happen mostly in the north. Mostly in the north, you see the issues of looting. You understand? What leads to some of these things is illiteracy. And why is there illiteracy? Because you have so much dropouts of school students around the north or in the north. And that contributed to... We have had protests on a daily basis, even NLC. How many of it have you seen looting in the process? The reason is because the leadership is well coordinated. We have protests in places like in Plateau State, where the former minister, Solomon Dalong, was involved. Why is it so? Because we have a coordinated leadership process that engaging the followership become very easy. But because when you have, some unscrupulous elements tagging themselves as leaders, and you can, FCT is like a center hub of the nation. And so everybody from different parts of the country dominates here. So you can even have somebody that doesn't even understand the concept of protest. What they may think as protest could be, even hitting of this chair is a protest. Without going straight to make the demand known, anything they see around that they can vandalize. Some tag protests as vandalism. Okay. Some tag protests as stealing. And that is why some of us, from the security angle, haven't seen the stories from the past, decide to say, come, gentlemen, yes, we have hunger, we have issues on ground, but let's calm down. Let's wait a minute and exhaust all the relevant means of ADR, alternative dispute resolution, to engaging the government, probably even in National Assembly leadership. You understand? Hold on a minute. Before I drop my mic for tonight, let me also say that the protests that we are having in this country, not just only the situations of hunger, the aloofness of the leadership of some of the National Assembly is a problem. How can we have the situations at hand? We are having a national leader that is saying,
While you are protesting,
Well,
we're going to be eating. We still have a national leader that is still telling you and I, let Nigerians breathe. We still have a national leader that is not sincere to the cause, that will look to the screen and want to make a statement and say, oh, let's send prayers to and the May bosses. All of these things have gathered the agitations in the past to have arrived us where we are today, where we don't want to be.
We agree with you, Mr. Onoja, but you're not dropping the mic yet, so we'll still talk. Yeah, but I also would like to correct an impression. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, talking about bad policies. He didn't say that the bad policies are coming from this administration. He said clearly that the bad policies of the previous administration is what President Bola Tinubu is trying to correct. But let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that for now. Well, let's please join our correspondent Abaje Osekwe live in Port. Thank you, Abaje Osekwe live in Port Harcourt to brief us more on what's going on there. Abaje, good evening.
Unmute your device so we can hear you. Abaje, are you there?
Is the protest also affecting network? It's quite pathetic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. You are good.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Today being the 7th day of the End Bad Governance protest in the country, was camp in Port Harcourt earlier today that I went down. Unfortunately, like my colleague complained in Lagos about two different groups, those that are for and those that are against the protest. I also saw a pinch of it today at the Federal Secretariat, which is usually the takeoff point for the protesters in Port Harcourt. I got there at about past 9 in the morning, and I saw pockets of hoodlums around looking for would-be protesters coming around for the protest. The questions they asked each of them that they lay their hands on is, are you protesting for or against the government of the day? And if they say they are here to protest for end-band governance, they'll take them to one corner, ransack them, and this, happened in front of security agents at the Federal Secretariat here in Port Harcourt. And in fact, in some cases, they take these protesters to the security personnel and hand the protesters over to them. After some minutes, at about past 11, they left the Federal Secretariat and converged somewhere around Pleasure Park along the Port Harcourt-Aba Express Road, because that is one of the designated places assigned for the protest by the Rivers State Police Commissioner, Olatuji Disu. But unfortunately, while we were there trying to feel the pulse of these protesters, what actually happened when they got to the Federal Secretariat in the morning, they told us their stories, how they were ransacked, how the police did not do anything about it. And while we were talking to them, I saw two vehicles, one a Hilux vehicle down, the other one a Sienna vehicle with police personnel. They came down and they started firing tear gas and canisters at these protesters that were gathered at the designated place as announced by the Rivers State Commissioner, by the Rivers State Police Commissioner. And they later told me that they are not happy that the police have taken sides with the hoodlums, because while the hoodlums were at the Federal Secretariat, where used to be their takeoff point, nothing was done to them. The security agents there did not chase them away, because that is not supposed to be one of the two designated points for protesters to converge here in Port Harcourt. So other than that, what happened today at the Pleasure Park, firing of tear gas canisters at the protesters, the protest for the past 7 days has been very, very peaceful in Port Harcourt. So the turnout today was a bit scanty compared to the 1, day 2, day 3, and up to day 6 yesterday. I was expecting to see a mammoth crowd because before today, the turnout kept, increasing by the day. But today, it took a drastic decline. So it appears it is those who have the balls to protest that came out today because they told me that yesterday they got killers that hoodlums have been contracted to make to truncate the protest today. And that was exactly what happened today at the Federal Secretariat in Port Harcourt along the Port Harcourt-Aba Expressway, as well as one of the designated points for protesters to converge in Port Harcourt around the Pleasure Park today.
Who allegedly contracted the thugs or the hoodlums? Who allegedly did that?
Well, that is one thing that the protesters cannot say for now. They told me that the question these hoodlums asked a couple of them that were rounded up was, are you protesting against the president? And if the answer is yes, they will ransack them. And they told them that they have orders from above. That is what they said this morning, that they are acting on orders from above to make sure that this protest does not hold, that the hunger that is in the country is affecting every other Nigerian and not only those who are out there in the streets protesting. And they didn't mention a particular name as the person responsible for the hoodlums that came out to the streets today in their numbers to destabilize innocent and unarmed citizens that were apparently, from what is said, exercise their rights. And in fact, two of them told me that they couldn't fight back because the hoodlums were heavily armed with guns, with machetes and bottles and clubs and all of that. And I didn't see any of them with these weapons, but they told me that the reason why they couldn't fight back in the morning where the hoodlums, came after them was because of the weapons that they were carrying.
Ekwe, for bringing us up
Please
to speed.
stay safe.
Yes, it's very, very important. Stay safe. But okay, so let's get to the nitty-gritty. You are here, sir. Mr. Isa Sanusi, Country Director, Amnesty International, Nigeria. So let us get to your report. You did say that 21 have been killed so far in Nigeria's hardship protest. What exactly? Where did you get this data from?
Well, we have our research process, and earlier in the week, we have released a figure of 13 people, an additional 7 people were killed in Kano. 1 person was killed in Azare, Bauchi State, and 1 person, a teenager of 16 years old, was killed by a soldier in Samaru in Zaria. So, and we are still compiling these figures. And we have layers of verification, families, witnesses that we have spoken with, lawyers and other civil society organization members. So this is how we come up with these figures. But these are not also conclusive because it will take days to conclude on what exactly happened, who has been killed, who has been disappeared, who has been arrested. A lot of people were arrested, hundreds of them are arrested. So it is too early to conclude. As far as the death toll is concerned and the arrests and severe injuries, it will take us days to conclude our investigation.
At the time you released the figure of 13, the police said, admitted that 7 were killed. In fact, they countered your reports. They mentioned you, called you out. And said you should present your facts, and all of that. And we know that they've never agreed with you, either the police or the army or any of them on some of these issues. But then how do we reconcile the official figures we're getting from government and what you have?
Well, let me say something. I was a journalist for some years. And I have covered a lot of stories. I have dealt with the police. I have dealt with the military in the course of my work. When it comes to, was only when I left journalism I realized the terrible thing happening with figures, either of accident or incidents or atrocities like attack by security personnel on peaceful protesters. So we have the list, we have the names, we have the pictures. We are in touch with the families of each of these people that were killed. Therefore, we have our standard research procedure, and it's not as if we just sit down and say, okay, this has happened, this has happened. Even on my way here, I have been speaking with the father of a boy who was killed in Maiduguri with a grenade, hand grenade. So we have ample evidence, and I'm telling you, it is not conclusive. The attack, the atrocities, the human rights violations committed throughout this protest are shocking and will continue to shock this nation for many years to come. But we have not concluded our own investigation. But one thing that comes out clearly is that our country, we need to start coming to terms with the fact that the world has changed. The world of this age is not the world of 80s, is not the world of 90s. People have the right to protest, people have the right to assemble. But Nigerians are so cooperative with the authorities to the extent that if you can clearly, even from the reports of our reporters, in Abuja, people who are restricted to the stadium. In Lagos, people who was restricted to Freedom Park. And you can hear your reporter saying that in Port Harcourt too, no one has the right to restrict anybody from protesting. According to international law, nobody has the right to tell you this is where you should protest. As long as you are not obstructing other people, you are not becoming a nuisance, you did not constitute a problem to others, you can protest anywhere you like. And that is what protest is all about. Go around, say what you want to say, and go back home peacefully. But we have now reached a situation whereby people are restricted, and they complied. And even when they complied, talks were unleashed on them. Even when they complied, tear gas was unleashed on them. Is this how we are going to continue? There is no way we can continue like this.
Let's interrogate further these death figures. The police said, 4 persons were killed in Borno by Boko Haram. They said 2 people were killed in Gombe, I think Gombe, by a car that rammed into people. And that in Yobe, a vigilante man shot a looter, an alleged looter, somebody he saw looting. He shot the person. This is how, the circumstances under which the 7 persons the police said were killed. But you are giving us an additional, I think, additional figure. So, how were these ones that you mentioned, besides these 7 that the police admit, how were they? Is it the police that killed them? Is it the demonstrators, or who killed them?
Okay. So let us start with Maiduguri. So what happened in Maiduguri was that there is one place called Bolori Junction in Maiduguri. There was one filling station called Kime filling station. There were some young people, fuel station attendants, 4 of them. They were sitting down. In fact, they ordered Indomie, and they were having breakfast. And a Borno State government official and his convoy were passing by. And from his convoy of security cover, someone threw a grenade at these 4 young men, and all of them died instantly. So it is now left for the government to determine who exactly that person is, but definitely it's a security personnel. So if the police are saying that, is Boko Haram, is not true, because I have evidence. If you like, if there is a forum on this program, I can bring the video and show you the boys in blood. It was not Boko Haram. It is so unfortunate that this can degenerate to this level. People were killed, and what we expected the Nigerian police as a respected institution to do is to conduct a thorough investigation, not to engage in self-saving, self-defense. Amnesty International is not a court of law. Amnesty International is not giving a judicial verdict saying that police have done this. Whenever you read our statement, you can clearly say that we have discovered this. Can you please investigate and tell Nigerians what is actually happened?
And in your statement, as I read here, you condemned the use of ammunition. That's before this studio interview. You condemned the use of live ammunition and called for investigation into the conduct of security forces. Now, are you saying the police should be held responsible for the killings?
Definitely, definitely. Who in Nigeria has, for example, we are sitting here, who do you expect will come with a AK-47 slugged on his shoulder? Definitely, it must be a security.
But there are a lot of illegal firearms. People
if that is the case, then it is also an indictment on the whole security architecture of Nigeria. And we have video evidence of policemen firing at people. This is not about making up. We have video evidence. We have video evidence. And what we are saying is that whether, police are saying, they are this, they are that, okay. Why can't we have an investigation first before, trying to evade responsibility? Let us have investigation. There was no investigation. It is not as if you just sit down in your office and they say, okay, this is what happened. Investigation has a standard procedure. There are impartiality, resourcefulness, and many other things. There is the need for use of data, forensic examination of evidence. That takes a lot of time. But how many days did it take, for someone to say this is true or not true? So that is why we are saying that let there be investigation. The president should constitute an investigative panel to investigate what happened. You can hear your reporter talking about sponsored talks, attacking peaceful protesters in Port Harcourt. Who brought them? And in some cases, like from the experience we have from NSAS, during NSAS, we have a lot of evidence whereby when talks came and they were attacking peaceful protesters with dangerous weapons, in most cases, the security personnel around did not intervene. We presented this evidence in 2020, and the same thing is playing out now. So what is going on? Who is responsible? For how long can we begin to come to terms with the fact that Nigerians have the right to peacefully protest and go back home?
Yeah, Jonathan, how can we get justice? How can the persons who are victims, even the 7, but that the police have admitted to, not to even mention the additional persons Amnesty International is talking about, because if this protest ends today, ends tomorrow, the country moves forward. These families are bereaved. Maybe some of them had children, had wives, had, the impact of what this will do for those families.
Well, thank you so much. I would like to say that in as much that I accept the fact that the country is not moving in the direction that Nigerians wanted, I also put to you that I think there is need for us to moderate the thought of our guest here, not to, to incite or to make an humongous statement. Why am I saying this? In research methodologies, I would not know the data or the research methodologies that was used by the Amnesty International to arrive at the figure that they said Nigerian security agencies killed allegedly. But I would like to say that in research methodologies, when you are putting back your thesis, I think there is need to have definite data in terms of quotations, or when you want to make reference in the time to future. I will give you an example. At Sharp Corner U-turn is a Maraba axis After Nyanya, you're driving from here to Nyanya. When you want to go after Nyanya, you want to turn back to town. The sharp corner U-turn is there. A man left his house to go and just have a view of what is happening. When he left his house and went there, a vehicle using a one-way run came and hit him, picked him up. There were two. One died immediately, the second died in the hospital. I can give you details of the hospital for your confirmation. When people got to know about the death of the man, it was stuck to the protest. So police have killed this man. We investigated. An eyewitness was there. There's a woman that roasts banana and all of this roadside food there. She was an eyewitness. There's a man that stood by, is a neighbor to him, is an eyewitness. So we are also being able to get our data of how this happened. But this was different from the story the people got. And I think it is from this kind of circulation, unverified statement, that perhaps the Amnesty International may have gotten to arrive at the numbers they said the police have killed. I am not holding brief for the government, neither the police, but there is need for us to put statement right before the people, and then that's make the media more beautiful, defining the stories, putting in perspectives, and defining who is involved. And also going back to, I don't know whether the number in these questions is inclusive of the policeman that was killed, that was mobbed. I don't know whether the policeman is not in Nigeria. So we need to be fair.
Well,
in defining all of this, I'm coming, please. In defining all of these rules, I am aware that there's a rule of engagement. That very morning, I was on a show, and I drove through the Ait'S. I saw the engagement of our Nigerian military. Perfect and beautiful. I saw the way they stop and search. There was no harassment, and there was nothing. Now, from that Ait'S, there's a checkpoint around the Kubo Ait'S. All the protesters passed through all of it, and they never hurt any of them. It is until when the protesters became violent, become looters, become criminals, because the moment they deviate from the protest, the demand, begin entering people's houses, stealing and vandalizing people's shops, you tag them as criminals. You no longer tag them as protesters, because they have deviated from the initial mandate. And so when you see this kind of people under the disguise of protest, you will not accord them the respect and the coverage, the protection of a protester. They should be treated according to the act that they were caught in. Because you cannot be able to differentiate who is a protester and who is a criminal, considering the current situations we find ourselves, the insecurity that is doomed in the country. So we should be able to say, oh, you can't see me and see him and say, this is a criminal and this is a protester, the genuine protester. Until they act, differentiate, then that is when it calls for arrest. Yeah. And if it is possible, arrest. If it comes to gun battle, where we see some protesters, looting NNCC quarters in Kanu and all of that, you treat them as protesters?
Mr. Anaja, so are you saying that Amnesty International figures of deaths is incorrect?
I think it is contestable. And they should make their data more verifiable. I have given you an instance.
So?
I know I'm coming. The police have come up with a figure.
He has also said he has
evidence. So yes, I think it will be, look, this is a state of the nation. We are in the state of the nation. It will be more fantastic. It's more fantastic. Like when we had a town hall meeting, we could have a situation where these data are displaced. These data are displayed on a dashboard where Nigerians can verify the information as to what has been presented. You understand? You can't be too certain of an information, or I don't know, but even party agents in Nigeria today cannot give an accurate data of an election they were present.
Perhaps
talk more of when you are just having a hearsay.
Perhaps that's why they are also saying it should be investigated, that this is what they've discovered, and it should be investigated.
The protest is still on, please, my brother. The protest is still on. And so we can't begin to blame the police for not instituting a panel as when the protest is still on. Let's say 10 days. It is wise to allow them exhaust the 10 days
time and then come up with a panel of that. But he has faulted them of, you can't put a cart before the horse.
Tyav, please, let's just hold on, please. I think Mr. Sanusi has been urging to respond to what you've been saying about the figures of debt. Mr. Sanusi,
yes. He said things that I find very difficult to accept because he is saying that people are criminals. So how did you arrive that people are criminals? Are you now saying that just because people are looting shops, then they should be killed? Is that the international procedure? You say you are a security expert. What are the rules regarding the use of firearms? Where are the security agencies allowed to use firearms in a street protest? So therefore, I am not here to argue with him. He has his own points, he has his own position, but clearly Amnesty International has been around for like 1961. And we have been doing this work, and we have our own standards. We are not a local organization. We don't put out things just for the sake of putting them out. And I assure you that at the end, when we finish our own investigation of this matter, the death figures will be higher than what we have currently. And I want to assure you that there is nothing that can justify calling anybody a criminal because they are protesting. In the first place, we know that in this country, we are a we are a democratic country. And campaigning happens every election season. And during campaigns, people die. Do we now say that just because people die in the course of campaigns, therefore campaigns should be abolished in Nigeria? What we are actually against is a situation whereby we will be drifted towards tyranny. And tyranny is a situation whereby people cannot oppose their leaders. People have the right, this right is innate, incontestable, to come out and agree or disagree with their government. And let me tell you something, there is nothing like incitement or something. We believe in peaceful protest. If you look at our statements, all our things, we believe that people should protest peacefully. We believe in the freedom principles of democracy. Therefore, we always believe that if somebody violates the law, that person should be put through the legal process and be tried fairly and be given the judgment. But what we don't believe in and what we will continue to oppose is a situation whereby Nigerians will be deprived of their right to peaceful protest, of their right to complain when they have problems. That is not something that is going to be possible. We will continue to talk about this. The right to peaceful protest is incontestable, is in our constitution, is in international law, and nothing whatsoever can be used as a gimmick to protect or to hang people and stop them from exercising their rights. Definitely, maybe the gentleman did not even read our statement, because if he had read it, he will see that we said that these things are allegations and we are asking the police to investigate. So there is nothing big, there is nothing new, but the fact that these atrocities are committed, no matter who committed them, we are going to mention it. Whatever the institution, whatever happened in this country, people knew that there was a time our office was blocked, sponsored protesters attacked our office many times in this country. Therefore, we are focused and we will continue to look at where human rights are violated, and whosoever is involved, we are going to point it out no matter what will happen.
Beyond the evidence that you have and all of that, is there a process Amnesty International will go through, perhaps to seek justice for those they think or they say have been killed during this protest or any other?
Well, Nigeria has a lot of civil society organizations that undertake this kind of responsibility. Like, if you remember, recently the Ait'S court passed a judgment on atrocities committed at the Lekki toll gate during Ait'S. So it's individuals that come together to take these matters to court. Whenever people have this idea, we encourage them, we support them throughout. And when panels of investigation are set up either by the police or the military to investigate these things, Amnesty International is very ready to submit a memorandum and participate, because our aim is to ensure justice. So we always encourage people. We are a human rights organization, we are small, but we always encourage people to seek justice on their own. And when they initiate these moves, definitely we will be there for them.
So before we take on some other things, so Mr. Onaja, how can we avert these killings in the future? Because these are protesters. We all know that it was hijacked in the north by some hoodlums. They looted, they killed, and whatsoever. So how can it be averted in the future?
Well, we will continue to advocate for policy reforms. We'll also continue to engage the government constructively, exhausting all alternative dispute resolution mechanism to ensure that we don't embark on street protest. And if eventually we must embark on street protest in the future, we should also adhere to the rules of a protest in Nigeria, because it's a fundamental right. But we must also know that it is where one's right stops that another continues. So we must engage the protesters, recruit our followership that believes in our vision of what the protest is all about, and not just bringing people from the street that do not understand the concept of protest. And again, I think our police are, in the course of this protest, have been professional to a point. You will watch on the media where police officers are aiding disabled Nigerians to ensure that she had her views of what exactly the case are with her. We saw where the person was on a wheelchair, and we actually saw a fantastic video of police officers giving sachet waters to protesters to support them. I think they're also being patriotic in a way. But all we need to continue to say is, or to advocate for, is about police reform, avoid brutality, a police where we know that this is civil, a police where we can believe that we have a Nigerian police that we can trust. Because the reason why we've not have an effective community policing is a perceived distrust from the police versus the people. Because when you talk about community policing, there's the people versus the police. And once there's no trust, you cannot have an effective and integrated community policing. So let's begin to advocate for a better police system in Nigeria, where one's right will be protected without whoever has a large pocket takes the show, or where police can be provoked. Yes, we know that they are also human beings, but they must also maintain the temple of professionalism while carrying out their duty. And I think the IG2, to the build up to this protest, called on Nigeria to be peaceful. And that also is engaging the people to ensure that they understand their right. If police is going to be different from what people perceive they are going to be, we wouldn't have had that kind of large sensitization and talking to Nigerians through a very peaceful way. So in the future, protesters should please know their right. The burning of quotas is not a constitutional right. Looting is not a constitutional right. Vandalism is not a constitutional right. So we should know where our right stops, and so we can communicate to the government and make our demand open.
Would you agree the National Human Rights Commission, in its advisory, in its report, a statement they issued about in the last 48 hours, 48 or 72 hours, they said they drew attention to the way security agencies were handling the protest. And they said they were not professional. There were some form of unprofessionalism in certain areas and all of that. And they called for investigation of how protesters will be attacked, how journalists covering, because even the crew of AIT, about 2 or 3 of them were also attacked, with tear gas canisters, and they called for investigation. The president, in his broadcast, which came about 48 hours after the police said 7 people were killed in Borno, Gombe, and Yobe, in his broadcast, he said people lost lives in Kano and Kaduna. He mentioned those states. He did not give figures, but he mentioned those states. Would you agree, like others are saying, that after this protest, there should be an investigation, and so that in a way that justice will be provided for victims those who died or those who were maimed or those who
Injured
were
even.
injured in this, would you agree that there should be an investigation, a form of compensation, so that we will have a closure?
Yeah, thank you. I think from my opening remark, you should know that I'm in Nigeria, a very patriotic one at that. And so I support justice, fairness, and equity. And so every Nigerian that I protest, something led to it. And so it is their right to protest. And it's also their right to be protected. Mm-hmm. So in a way, for those that have lost their lives, I sympathize with the families of the ones that have lost their lives. However, the situations we find ourselves may not necessarily need an investigation of an expanded one as Nigerians have called for. I think going forward, protesters or leadership or organizers of protest should in a way come up with technical committee that may advise in issues of this nature, because otherwise it becomes another, another call that may heat up the already heated situations we find ourselves. Okay. And so we can only, no life should worth killing, but we can compensate, the government should in a way compensate the family of those that have lost their lives. And I know very well that the actions taken so far is not deliberate if eventually our security agencies are found worthy. But we need, as a matter of urgency, reach out to the families of those that have lost their lives, engage them in a way that they will be perceived in a, that they are just to them, instead of engaging on investigation that may take 5 years. Thank you from the NSAS issues. You know how many years it took us before we arrived at coming about the panels and all of that.
Okay, Mr. Onoja, we really do not have time. Let's go to Mr. Sanusi for his final words. What is the way forward?
Well, the way forward is for Nigerian leaders, and when I say leaders, I mean everyone in the position of responsibility, trusted with power, should do the right thing. I'm begging them in the name of the God they worship to do the right thing. Our country is in trouble. Our demographic is very, very young, and there are no jobs, no hope, and that is a time bomb. So they should do the right thing. And the second thing I want to say is that protest is not the enemy. Protesters are not the enemy. There is no way you can prevent people from protesting. Protest is part of democracy, and if you don't want protest, then you don't have to be in the political system or democratic system. So Nigerian leaders have to agree that people can disagree with them and come to the street and express their disagreement. In our country, whenever people supporting government are doing protests, they start peacefully and end peacefully. So why is it that when people are having different opinion from the government or those in authority, when they start protests, they are stigmatized, they are called names. A lot of conspiracy theories are flown around to stigmatize and delegitimize their genuine concerns. Nigerians are hungry, and this is not something contestable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your thoughts on the program. We must thank you, Issa Sanusi, Country Director, Amnesty International. Thanks for joining us on the program. And we thank you too, Mr. Jonathan Onoja, Security Analyst. Thank you for your thoughts as well. So before we round off this show, let's take our epilogue. Nigeria's whirlwind August protests have created a national conversation on what governance, its deliverables, and its responsibilities to engage with the citizens who own the mandates should be. The protesters have spoken. The issues are clear. Government cannot be exclusive. It cannot be an exclusive club for sharing opportunities or graduating to the class of top dogs. Government is sacred responsibilities, and those called to serve must be accountable to the owners of the mandates. The protesters have also thrown up a number of issues, indeed, and in fact, Nigerian population of the hungry, the poor, and the underprivileged must be a matter of national concerns. TV.
Yes, and indeed, with the protesters now off the streets, off the protest venues where we've seen them in Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, in Kaduna, in Zamfara, and the Jos, and the other states. The State of the Nation, the special program that has been offering live coverage of the protests, will also go off for now, until perhaps when we have any other moment when we need to get back the program for the costs of taking issues on State of the Nation. We will no longer be having the live coverage of the protests until further notice.
That's true, but let's conclude with our epilogue. Well, we did say that we cannot be reduced to a political weapon to be used to win elections. In the midst of the protests, institutional weaknesses became apparent. The police is poorly oriented and its language of engagement undemocratic. The military, speaking of intervention, if the protest went beyond a defined limit, was institutional indiscipline. The military cannot call itself out and can only be deployed by civilian authorities. However, it also amounted to opportunism for some people to call for military intervention or refine change. That was a threat to the Nigerian state, which no enlightened mind should deploy in what was planned as a peaceful agitation for change in policies by the government. That raises the question, what have the protests achieved since the response of the president was to re-emphasize the policies of the government, and why the government could not consider a shift where the days of the protests, the loss of lives, the properties destroyed, infrastructure damaged, and loss to the national economy all in vain? Maybe not, but only if those in authority, the institutions whose actions have been indicted in the protests, and those whose responsibility it is to act and function in the interest of the good governance, discharge those functions faithfully. If the government takes on the position of them versus us and not look at the protest as a moment in the life of the nation when the philosophy of government, the effectiveness of institutions are taken as citizen-centered, then Nigeria may yet return to another season of protest. If, however, those in authorities examine the protest more soberly and learn from both its positive and negative, the nation, its development, its institutions, and their effectiveness will benefit from the protest. That would make Nigeria's August of protest a useful experience that would affect the lives of the people. That is what it should be. Terverr.
Indeed, that is what it should be. The lessons for the protesters, the lessons for the government, the lessons for the country, the lessons for our democracy.
I'm Hadiza Aldo. Thanks for joining us, and thank you so much for being with us all through the program, State of the Nation.
And I am Terverr Tyav.